Welcome to Talking Business and Life with Claudio Reilsono and Steve Mancini. Claudio and Steve will share their business and life experience to help you grow your business and improve your life. Here's Claudio and Steve.
Good evening and welcome to Talking Business and Life. I am your co-host, Steve Mancini.
And my name is Claudio Reilsono, and we have a very special guest. We're going to jump right into it. We have a very, very special guest today. Someone I've known since, I can be this specific, August 19th, 1973. He was pitching against the almost the New York Giants, San Francisco Giants against Juan Marichal. He had a complete game. He went 3 for 3. That game. I was 8 years old, and I met him before the game, and we've been friends ever since, if you can believe that. How many people can say that they're friends with the first athlete they ever met? 13-year Major League veteran, 103 wins, Game 5 starter. The 1979 World Series, pitched the gem. That was October 14th of 79. It was my birthday. He was a Pirate announcer for 12 years, an announcer for ESPN for 3. And he taught my daughter how to eat spaghetti. Somebody who I'm very honored to call friend. I love the guy, admire him, and that's Mr. Jim Rooker. Jim, thank you so much for being on our show.
Wow. I mean, I don't know what to say after that introduction, Claudio. You're really building up the points, big guy. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
And he was my first guest on my show, if you can believe it, Jim, back in 2018.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, time flies. Time flies.
It sure does.
Jim, we're going to jump into it. Something that I've never asked you. I don't think I have, in all the times we've been together. The things that you like about today's game and things you don't like about today's game.
Oh, wow. Well, geez, I could probably ruffle some feathers because, you hear so many things. Let's start with what I kind of don't like, because I'd rather end this segment with on the plus side.
Right.
First of all, when I was a little kid, there are two things I always wanted to be, one or the other, either a Major League Baseball player or a jet pilot. And anybody that knows me or got to know me would never put me in the controls of a jet pilot. So that was never going to happen. So things about the game, there's always little things. Number one, it just seems like sometimes that they change a rule or make some idea change of some kind. For example, a couple of years ago, and I can ask you this question, didn't they enlarge the bases 3 inches?
Yes, I believe so, yes. I don't like a lot of the rules, but yes.
The answer to that question really is they didn't, because isn't home plate a base?
Oh, that's true. They didn't. Yeah,
they enlarged the bases, but they didn't home plate.
Right.
My point is, the rule changes that happen in baseball, whenever they may be, every 2 years, 5 years, whatever they be, rarely, and I mean rarely, for the past 50, 60 years, have ever benefited a pitcher.
That's right.
It's always 99% of the time to benefit the hitter, runner, whatever. And the thing about it is, that gets me, even though they didn't enlarge home plate, we still figure out a way to get them out.
That's right.
And I think, I don't even know what the major league average is today, like 230 something or something like that. I think a couple.
Yeah.
Huh?
It's lower than that. Because there's more strikeouts. There's more strikeouts the past several years than there have been hits.
Yeah, well, the mentality with all of this home run mentality now, launch angle and all this stuff, when you see guys swinging the bat, there were a few guys that I can remember through the years that could hit a high fastball, and it's because they swung level or more down on the ball when it was around the letters.
Right.
When you watch a guy now swinging the ball around the letters, watch his right shoulder and how much it dips. That's why they can't hit that pitch that's up. They're swinging under it the majority of the time. So in regard to that was a rule I didn't like. I mean, they're bigger, stronger, faster. They're supposed to be smarter. You're telling me you need to make the bases bigger, and these guys don't know how to run the bases, so they need a bigger base? And I even heard at one time they were thinking of making 2 bases at first base, which, again, I call these khaki pantsers, these idiots that never played the game, that come up with all these ideas.
Right.
And they should just leave the game alone. let them play. Your talent's going to show whether you're good enough or not. And to let these meatheads make these decisions, and I'm, you know what? You got to be careful with me, Claudio. I could get carried away and go cuckoo. So.
I've heard you before. I know.
Thing. Yeah, well, the ghost runner second base. And then I think last year you used it during the season. They don't use it in the playoffs or the World Series.
Right.
What kind of a setup is that? If you're going to have a rule, you use it for the whole. Again, the idiots that run the game and make the decisions are complete idiots in my mind. And here's one from a pitcher standpoint. If you watch a game today, tonight, tomorrow, whenever, watch how many times the catcher, let's say you've got a right-handed batter up there, and the pitch is inside to the hitter. So the catcher, with his target up and his hand up, with you looking into that catcher's glove, if the pitch moves inside, they push the ball, backhand the ball, farther away from the strike zone, instead of bringing the ball to you.
Yep.
And that's just a pitch on the inside, or it might be on the outside to a left-handed batter. But because the ball's on the outside, they push the ball farther away from the strike zone. And I even asked a guy, won't get into names or anything like that, but I asked him why they do that, and he says, well, we're taught to bring our glove around and bring the ball. I said, well, wait a minute. Mm-hmm. So the ball's coming at you, and with your glove, you're going to circle around to try to catch the ball, sideways? Or catch it as it goes by you? His explanation was so asinine that I think that he didn't really have an answer, so he just invented something. But if you watch these catchers, and I'm talking about good catchers, not only do they catch him properly, and of course a lot of guys today, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Well, I'm sorry, I do. I know fundamentals. And especially these boneheads that are catching on one knee.
Oh, yeah.
I saw a guy 2 days ago, he had two passed balls, and they gave the pitcher a wild pitch on both of them. He couldn't block the ball because he was on one knee. So, it's just the fundamentals of the game have left us. They don't teach what the way they used to, sliding, technique, hitting the cutoff man, stuff like that. But again, I'm a dinosaur, and people will say, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, I think I do, but, the world changes.
You do know what you're talking about. I have a notebook at home that whenever you were announcing, Jim Palmer, not so much McCarver, Joe Morgan, and I have all these notes, but you and I talked several months ago about, and I sent you some videos if you ever saw them, these guys with that uppercut swing, like you said. But another thing, Baltimore Orioles, they teach to stab at the ball. I was always taught to receive the ball, have soft hands. They teach to stab at the ball. I don't know why. But I did have the good fortune of speaking to guys like you and Candelaria and Rennie and Grant Jackson. And you guys get upset about what you see today. And I learned from the best. And Candelaria, he talked about, changing eye levels and changing speeds and so on and so forth. These guys, it's just hard to watch when you know how the soup should be cooked and you hear the announcers, what they say, and it just doesn't work. These uppercuts and a guy's hitting 230 and he's an all-star I remember when Dale Barrett was leading the league for shortstops and home runs, hitting 250, 240, and they wanted to run him out of town. Now he'd be, an all-star.
Well, I don't know if you saw the other day, Jose Altuve swung at a pitch that was like 5 feet outside.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that, but I when I saw it, it was like, this guy's a good ball player.
Sure.
And you're going to swing at bad pitches. There's no question. But 5 feet outside, it is incredibly embarrassing. And I get these guys, they guess hit. But, again, I don't want – okay, that was the negative, some of the negatives. The positives that I love, baseball is baseball. It's in my blood. And
Sure.
I'll always love the game. It's hard for me to say what are the things I like about baseball. It's hard. I like watching guys that fundamentally play the game and know how to win.
Right.
And it's easy. I can pick out some, cherry pick. And who doesn't really enjoy watching Paul Skeens pitch? The guy is not only talented physically, but mentally. Who wouldn't like, even though he struggled the last few years with injury, like Mike Trout, watching him, or Ohtani, these guys that are doing things in baseball or did things in baseball that nobody ever did, So that kind of makes you really appreciate. And you remember a couple of years ago, I think it was last year actually, Ohtani hit a home run off of Skeens in Pittsburgh, but he struck him out the first time. The next time up, Ohtani hit a home run off of Skeens. And I thought it was fabulous, mainly because it was the best against the best.
Right.
Skeens got him the first time, Ohtani got him the second time. And that to me, that's the purity of baseball, the true purity of the game. And that's what I really enjoy about seeing things that just, players that are instinctual, that do things not because, they're going by statistics or stats or anything like that. They're just, they have that intangible or the instincts of the game that you really appreciate. You just downright appreciate.
Jim, let me ask you a question because you brought up the word stats. Baseball has always been, it's always been a business, but at the same time, there was always a certain reverence for the game. There were just certain things you didn't do, whatever. Businesses were there to make money. They were there to sell tickets. But at some point, it sort of crossed the line between just being a business and being all about the business. You were kind of in when it was more pure. I mean, again, everybody wants to make money, but there was just something different. Do you see a time when it really transitioned from, baseball to baseball, really baseball incorporated? And do you think that's maybe why it's so different now?
Well, that's a tough question. I really can't pinpoint. And part of the problem is, I think, being away from the game for so long and not seeing it on a day-to-day basis. I mean, that's for like an argument or conversation that really needs to go in depth. I wish I could answer the question for you, but I really can't.
No, that's okay because it kind of it sort of aligns with what you and Claudio were talking about. Something has changed in baseball. There was a time when if you weren't hitting 250, you were like, am I going to the minors if I don't have 100 RBIs? But now batting averages are so low, everybody's swinging for the fences. But not a lot of people are necessarily hitting the fences. It's not like we've got, more home runs than ever. So something has transitioned into baseball. Now, I guarantee you haven't been playing in a while, but you've obviously been watching it, kind of along the lines of what Claudio asked you, is there something, like, what do you think's different about the game? Really different about the game, and not just necessarily athleticism, but clearly there's something different. Again, the rule changes. I can't put my finger on it either, but I feel like if you step away from, let's say if you haven't been watching baseball for a few years and you went back and watched it, it would be very different. Something's like, I don't know how to put my finger on it. I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Well, my first thought is money. Money. Back, and again, it's just like the world changes. Baseball has changed, like I said before. But back in the day, kind of, so to speak, is, you were not only playing for your team, but you're also playing to try to make some money. Now, with the kind of money, this is the greatest time in the world to be a professional in any sport. You don't even have to hardly perform anymore. You can hit 199 and make $5 to $10 million a year. Who in the heck? What organization or company where your employee is probably making more than some owners in some cases? It's the Indians running the asylum or the inmates running the asylum. And I do think money has a lot to do with it because there's no, you have one or two decent years. All of a sudden you get a general manager say, here's our answer. But I don't think there are a lot of stupid general managers as far as I'm concerned in the major league. They'll give a guy a big contract after his second or third year of having maybe one good year out of three and thinking, okay, now here, this guy's going to take us to the promised land. And all of a sudden, the next year or two, he doesn't. You know, there are no guarantees in sports. Just like when you run a business, you go by the numbers. You look at the bottom line. If numbers aren't there, you've got to change something. In baseball, I mean, you look at the guys. Look at some of these guys that sign these huge contracts and flame out. I don't think some of these general managers that have that job are smart enough. I don't even know how in the hell they got that job to begin with.
Agreed.
But I won't name names, but I'll give you a good example, in my opinion. You've got a guy that, let's say, plays for the Atlanta Braves, and they have a darn good team. They have an organization through the years that has done, you know, really good things and all of this stuff. And all of a sudden, another team decides to sign this guy and give him, let's say, $20 million. And I don't mean by today's standards. Now, I'm going back. That's why I'm saying that's how, in my opinion, how the money's changed. What this guy didn't, I don't think, comprehend was that player who played for Atlanta coming to this other team who they think he's going to take us to the promised land. We need some real help here. Well, that team kind of stinks up the joint a little bit. One guy isn't going to make the difference. Meanwhile, he comes over there, doesn't do squat, gets his $20 million, and he's an average player. But when he was with Atlanta, a much better team, hidden kind of in a lineup where he doesn't have to produce like they need him to in this other town, and he just can't get it done. He's not a guy like you take Dave Parker, Willie Stargell, guys like that. They could carry a team. They could carry a team. Or Mike Trout could carry. And I'm talking about everyday players. They could carry a team for a week or two, and then all of a sudden the other guys start chipping in, and then it becomes hitting becomes contagious, and all of a sudden you got that train going in the same direction. Once you start a train, it's pretty hard to stop one. You know, you can slow them down, but it's pretty hard to stop them. And so I personally think that money has been the biggest detriment in the game. They're supposed to be bigger, faster, stronger, and all this. It's like you're buying a product, you're paying more for a product, and you're actually getting less. I think if you made a list of who are the most overpaid players in the game today, a lot of those names on that list would surprise a lot of people by their standards. I mean, look what Harper went through last year when his GM said he didn't play up to his elite standard. Well, he didn't like that, and guess what? He didn't, and he isn't right now, as far as I can tell. But you know, sometimes the truth hurts, and a lot of times, I know even when I was broadcasting, I had to. It's not that I had to bite my tongue, because I would say stuff that I thought was fair to me and the team, the player, the town, and a player would come up to me afterwards, and kind of, you know, we'd have not a real good exchange of words, and I'd just say, well, prove me wrong. You know, if I'm wrong, show me where I'm wrong for what I said and how I said it. You tell me. And normally, I would win 99% of those arguments because I could prove what I was saying. I said, you want to see the replay? You want to see this? We can go to. No, they don't want to see that. Somebody told them I said this or that. You know, and I even asked the one guy one time. I said, who told you what I said? And he said, my girlfriend. Oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I said, let me ask you a question. What does she know about baseball other than what you have ever told her? He looked at me and he says, you got a point there, and he walked away. He knew he was wrong. So it's just, you know, I mean, they're I don't know, you know, the money, no player is worth $10 million, but they are if the owners will pay it, or 20, or 100, or whatever. I mean, I guess it really goes to show you how much money ownership is making.
Exactly.
If they can pay players that kind of money.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is ironic. I'm sorry, I want to jump in because baseball is driven by statistics. And the owners, all they want to do, realistically, is they want butts and seats. They want as many people in that stands as possible. So the interesting thing that you said to this, I'm going to go pay $20 million back then. Even now, they do the same thing. Some teams won't pay anything. We may or may not be living in a city like that. But he's gotten better. But there are some rosters that are insanely overpriced. And the statistic, again, if you want to use modern statistics, it's simply not worth it. So I don't understand is why the owners are paying this money if the team is not winning. And ultimately, butts and seats usually occurs when you're winning.
Well, bottom line answer is because some of them are really stupid. That's really
Inherited money.
Well, no, you know what? A lot of these businessmen that are so intelligent, intellectually incredibly brilliant, in their business in the business world, they know, again, bottom line numbers. We need to do this. Okay, we can do that. Blah blah blah. Well, when you're dealing with a human element, there are no guarantees. When you see a player year after year after year perform up to those qualities, abilities, that's a special guy. I mean, look what Mike Trout did through the years. Look what Barry Bonds did through the years. I mean, drugs or no drugs, I mean, even before, or other players, pitchers, and all this stuff. But I just, it's mind-boggling to me that you have all of the time. I mean, when you can get a player that strikes out and goes to the bench and pulls out an iPad and sees how he struck out or flew out or grounded out or whatever. I mean, I think, to me, that cheapens the game so much. And he can sit and look at that iPad and still go 0 for 4 and can't figure out what he's doing wrong. Now, what is wrong with this picture? I mean, can you imagine if you gave Parker an iPad to look in the dugout or look at his last at bat when he popped up or something, or guys like that, or Madlock that could, guys that could hit over 300 consistently, and okay, now I see what he's doing. Now, and they'll set a pitcher up. They'll set him up. They'll let him go with one pitch, and they'll set him up because they know that guy's going to come back at some point and try to get him out with that pitch, and they'll be ready, whether it's a base hit, a double, home run, or whatever. But those are the smart ones. So it's just, I mean, that's what I love about baseball, actually. It's when I see a hitter do things to a pitcher or vice versa. And I love to watch pitchers, especially ones that aren't afraid to pitch inside, which is a rarity, I think, in today's game too. But it's just there's so many good things about the game, but there are so many bad things. Not so many bad things, but enough bad things that excuse my language. I get so pissed off that I have a hard time watching it.
Jim, I'm with you 1,000% with everything you said, obviously. Now, you went from Detroit to Kansas City to the Pirates, and you kind of touched on front office, but what was the difference between Detroit, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, front office and on the field, player-wise?
Well, I don't want this to sound like I'm pointing fingers or degrading anybody, but it's just factual, okay? When Kansas City, the expansion in '69, they brought in a general manager that hadn't really been in baseball for a long time. They hired a manager that had been out of the game for 20 years. 20 years. Joe Gordon. I like Joe. Joe was a good guy, but he had been away from baseball for 20 years. And we were a bunch of ragtag guys from low big leagues to good AAA. It's an expansion. You were the one thing Kansas City did when with their roster, their drafting of a pitching staff was very good. We finished in third place our first year, which was amazing.
Sure. You went from Detroit to Kansas City to the Pirates. What was the difference between the front offices and, of course, the players, the attitudes?
Well, when I went to Pittsburgh, number one, when I met Joe Brown, the smartest man that I've ever known in baseball, and I still think nobody's ever caught him. So Joe Brown I met, and then my very first day of spring training, look at who you're around: Willie Stargell, Richie Hebner, Bob Robertson, Rennie Stennett, Manny Sanguin, all of these guys, and the pitching staff, Justy and Blass and Keeson and Moose and all of these guys. I'm thinking, you after your first workout, I look around, I'm going, man, now this is what the big leagues is all about. It's just the way they went about things, the way they did things. Very, very confident, knowing you didn't have to be told what to do. And I think in Kansas City, with our managerial setup, general manager and coaches and things, these guys had been in the game for a long time, but they had been away from the game for a long time, and they really weren't in tune to instructing or teaching, especially when you have an expansion team, guys that are still kind of feeling their way along. Especially I'd only been a pitcher for a couple of years, right. And still trying to get the right, what is it? What do I need to do? Where's that confidence? And I, ultimately found out on my own, luckily, and it happened in the wintertime, when I was in winter ball, but the year I got traded to the Pirates. I was warming up before a game in Venezuela, Caracas, and I don't know what made me do it. I'm throwing the ball, and all of a sudden, I decided, instead of throwing that cross-seam fastball, and I had a good live arm. I had a good fastball. I threw in the mid-90s, maybe a little higher. But I decided to go with the seams and tilt my wrist. I'm a left-hander. Tilt my wrist just a little outside, out to my left, just a little bit. Threw the pitch for the middle of the plate, and it was like a vicious sinker. And I'm thinking, how did that happen? So I said, I'll throw another one of those. So I threw another one. And I went, wow, can't be that easy. So I pitched that night, had a heck of a game, ended up really in Venezuela having, they when I decided not to stay there and play, because when your team loses, other teams in the playoffs can pick you up. And Caracas wanted me to pitch for them in the Caribe series. And I had had enough. There were other things about their fans that weren't too thrilling, and I just said, look, stuff I've seen here, I appreciate your offer, but I'm going home. And in the papers, they had a picture of me on the back of their local paper, and it said, un hero se fue, which means one hero gone, because I wouldn't stay and pitch for them. But then I got traded to the Pirates that year, that winter, there in Venezuela, went to spring training, had to make the team. I had a great spring, but it was that sinker. I learned to throw a little bit of a sinker that turned my whole career around. So it's just one of those things that happened, and thank goodness it did. I mean, because before that, I had a good arm, but I didn't have the confidence to throw the ball in the strike zone as much as I should have. But once I got that pitch, I was on my way. I mean, that just made it. Plus, the best thing, I've said it before, the best thing that ever happened to me baseball-wise is the getting traded to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Sure. There's just no question about that.
Before Steve goes on, I remember you telling me that story, and I told my pitchers, whenever you're throwing, pay attention to what you're doing. Like, even if you try something crazy because it might work, then you can repeat it. And I always tell that story that you told me.
Well, Joe Brown, when I got to spring training, even Joe Brown, I hadn't performed yet. I mean, we weren't playing yet, but he wanted, he talked to me a little bit and all. I mean, when you talk, you don't talk to Joe Brown, you listen, because This guy was so smart. But I remember him telling me, Rook, don't throw the ball. Don't try to throw to any spot. He said, throw the ball for the middle of the plate because the ball's not going to end up there. Your ball moves good enough and all of this stuff. And, nobody had ever talked to me like that before. No general manager, no pitching coach, nobody. But he gave you so much confidence in your ability that, it's like, wow, I mean, is this really happening? And all I can say is for the first 2 months of the season, I was in the bullpen because Steve was having those issues of control. And Bill Burton tried everybody on the staff but me to take that starting spot. And he finally let me start a game, and I got raked over the coals by the Cardinals, and I figured, well, there you go. You had your chance, but he gave me one more chance. I started the next rotation on the fifth day and beat Montreal, and that was in June. And from June, I won 10 games for that year, and not being a starter until June. So, at that point, I never pitched in relief again.
As you know, my Uncle Jack used to work at the Allegheny Club, and I used to have breakfast once in a while with Mr. Brown. And I was a little kid, but I would listen to him talk. And I remember, again, I would just listen to him, and he knew the game inside and out. And I don't know if the GMs today knew the game like him or Sid Thrift. And another guy who was always wonderful with me, always, and that was Mr. O'Toole, Joe O'Toole. I really loved him a lot. Again, here's a 10, 12, 14-year-old kid and these guys were always giving me the time of day. But when you mention all these names, it just brings it all back and how special that was for me. Your thoughts on Mr. O'Toole, Joe O'Toole?
Oh, well, he's one of those behind-the-scenes kind of guy that makes the organization work.
Yeah.
Jack Berger was that way. Sally O'Leary. Those people, you just don't hear enough about them. But they were real baseball people that loved the game, loyal as can be. And again, that's another word. I didn't really know what loyalty was till I went to Pittsburgh, and I found out. And it wasn't just friends; it's the fans. I tell people all the time, you don't know what it's like until you go to Pittsburgh and have those fans, the loyalty that they have, and they still today, through the ups and downs of everything, they're out of this world. They're fantastic. I
want to chime in on that because, the one thing that I do believe about not just baseball but sports in general is back in, and we're going to say in the old days, but there was a passion. Those guys just loved the game, and yep, they're making money off it, but they loved the game. So they got to live their dream. I love baseball. I'm really good at it. I know this. I've been watching it, playing it since I was a kid. Now I actually get paid to either coach or GM or be a scout, whatever. I mean, what a life. But it's a key there because there was a passion there. I'm not saying that the people today necessarily lack the passion, but I don't believe that they have that kind of just like, I'll do whatever I got to do to help the team. Now I think it's purely driven by the finances at all levels. And I'm going to ask you specifically, do you think professional sports, we can talk about just baseball, have overexpanded and have diluted the talent as a result, including coaching and scouting and all those other sub-coaches?
I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, it's like I said, you're paying more to see less. And by expanding these teams, you're thinning out the talent. I mean, like I say, you get a guy, a guy that hits 199 and he's a big league catcher. Right. He might be able to, an everyday catcher, I might add too. But he hits 19 home runs. Okay, all right. But he probably has 40 RBIs if he's lucky. But it's such, like I said before, it's such a different game now. I was lucky. I always tell kids when I go speak to little groups of kids and everything, and I say, you're looking at proof that dreams do come true. This guy standing right here dreamed about being a Major League Baseball player, and my dream came true. And I wasn't scouted by anybody. Luckily for me, my best friend was the pitcher on our high school baseball team, and I just happened to do well as an outfielder and hit some home runs at the right time. And when Milwaukee and Detroit, those were the two teams that approached me, asked me if I wanted to sign to play baseball, and I said, "What do you mean?" Because I hadn't thought I was either going to try to go to college or go in the military. I didn't think that I had any kind of talent to be, even though I wanted to be. I wasn't a blue chipper or anything like that. I said, "You're going to pay me to play baseball?" And my mom was really upset because she wanted me to go to college. But I went ahead and signed, and I struggled. I was a pretty good outfielder, and I had some power. I hit 19 home runs in the Northern League one year. One of them, by the way, 450 feet that they measured. And
without the steroids,
I like I said, lucky. I made. It's a story about how I was converted to a pitcher, but that's again the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't know how I was blessed with such a strong arm, but that's what made the difference. The fact that they saw something in the fact that I could throw the ball as well as I did. It took me a couple of years to catch on, but my first full year as a pitcher, because they messed around with me for a year or two when I was with Detroit, I won 12 games in the Carolina League, and at the end of the year I got called up to the big leagues. And I'm thinking, wow, you kidding me? So it's just every, when you get older, you think about all those things. And I remember my nephew, he was like a Rain Man of baseball. He could tell me anything and everything about the sport. And he looked at me and I used to give him and his brother all kinds of baseball stuff. And he said, Jim, he said, it seems like it was just the other day all that happened. And I looked at him and I said, it was just the other day. That's how quick time goes by.
That's for sure.
And I think as you get older, like me, an old fart, you tend to hang on to things a little more that are important to you. And for me, it was baseball. I on occasion think back to the good times and some of the bad times, the ups and downs, and I think the downs make the ups really more appreciative. And I'm just a very lucky guy, and I'll never forget that. I mean, I've been able to accomplish something. I mean, think about it. Not only being a big league ball player, being on a team like the Pirates when we were so good in the 70s, not only being in the World Series, but starting a game in a World Series. Are you kidding me? Who? I never dreamed of anything like that. Even when I was a pitcher, I never thought about starting a game in the World Series. I mean, I was a starter, but you just don't think about that sort of stuff. You just, anytime when I get a little cuckoo, I have to kind of punch myself and say, hey, wake up, Think about all the good things, because I've done some pretty stupid things in my life too. But
Well,
I've gotten a little smarter.
Right.
Huh?
I said you're not the first, and you won't be the last. Jim, I want to ask you
But
something.
I'm real happy. I'm very content.
But I want to kind of go back because, this is one thing. So I've been watching the Pirates since I was a little kid, and all the way back when you were pitching. And, when I look at an organization like Pittsburgh, and I'm going to be a little bit negative here on them because it's such a storied franchise. It's been around for like almost, it seemed like one of the the hockey you'd call it an original six. It's been there. There's just so much history there, and it seemed like I'm not going to pick on the current owner, but it's kind of a balancing act. On one hand, you don't want to overpay for talent. On the other hand, you can't keep lowballing your roster and think you're going to be competitive. Did that, when the Pirates, and they still kind of are, seem to be, just, I don't know what it is. They just weren't bringing in the talent. Either they were unwilling or unable to bring in talent to be competitive for a long time. As a former player, did you think about that kind of thing? Because you played for the organization.
Well, I will say the same thing to you in regard to the storied franchise, because being there through those good years and the tradition that the Pirates had built before that and to a degree after, and to see them take that slide, that's painful. It's very painful. I can't fault ownership for not wanting to make money, and the way things were set up, as far as I understood, they were doing an okay job making money. And after all, you got a guy that buys a ball club, forks over a lot of money. That's what he wants. He wants a return on his investment. And so part of it you understand, but then another part of it is, do you really want to win? Do you really want to take that step forward? So you remember when they had that play-in game with Cincinnati? And then they beat Cincinnati to make the playoffs, and they actually lost to the Cardinals in that first round.
About 12, 14 years ago. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, that. So I was on a show, and I'm trying to think. I can't remember. I might have been with Rob Pratt. But anyway, there were a couple of the writers that were on the show with me, and we were going back and forth, and they're asking me questions and all this stuff. And I said, I got a question for you guys. I said, look at all the excitement that this team has brought to this city this year. You haven't seen anything like this in years and years and years, because they were under 500 for so many years. And even my daughter, Jamie, she wanted tickets to that game, which I got for her. And she said to me after the game, she called me because she's Pittsburgh, I'm living in Florida, and she said, Dad, I've never seen excitement at a ballpark like she said it was the craziest thing. I said, well, now you know what it was like in 1979.
That's right.
And I just was having this conversation, and I asked these guys, let me ask you a question. I said, do you think now that Mr. Nutting has seen what excitement and really generating more money to see butts in the stands, how it enhances the amount of money you could make with a team? Do you think he'll open his checkbook? And I never even got checkbook. They both said no immediately.
And
Before
he
I
didn't.
even, I figured
And he
he would, open up the checkbook, get some more players, and let's go. And they both said no, just like that.
No, it's funny because I think
surprised.
a year or two later, I think a lot of that team was gone. Claudio can
It might
check his
be.
facts,
It could be.
I think it was a couple of years after they. So when they made that wild card, I think they had a decent one next year. Maybe
They were maybe one player away, and
then
instead they just
blew it up.
Cleaned house. Jim, somebody who I think is incredibly underrated, and I liked him a lot, and he was always great with me, and I know you loved him. Describe to our listeners who Chuck Tanner was professionally and personally. And I think he's underrated. I think he should be in the Pirate Hall of Fame, as well as, and no offense to Jim Leland, but for my money, I thought Tanner was better.
Yeah, well, Leland kind of had to build a foundation. He had to start more from the bottom and work up with the type of team and players he had to work with. And Chuck had an established team, but he was the right kind of manager for that team. You could have brought in another manager that could have completely failed with that ball club. He knew how to handle these guys, who to get on, who not to get on. And it was, to us, it was kind of interesting because the guy that Chuck used to beat up on most of the time was Phil Garner. And the reason he did that, and Phil caught on real soon. If Chuck got mad about something, and you know, he would let it be known, and he might say something to Phil in front of another guy or whatever, and Phil would just take it because he knew Chuck. He had to pick out a guy because you had guys like Parker and Stargell and Bill Robinson. You know, I mean, it wasn't a black-white issue, but he wanted everybody to know that everybody was going to be treated the same. Right. So on occasion, he kind of ripped into Phil, and we all knew what was going on. And Phil, as smart as he was, he caught on right away. But Chuck also never managed by the so-called book. And of course, to this day, nobody's ever showed anybody the real book.
Who wrote the book?
Because there isn't one. Yeah, who wrote the book and the percentages and all that stuff. Chuck was a gut manager in a lot of cases. He manages on his gut feeling as opposed to statistics. He couldn't probably manage today with the stuff they do now.
Agreed.
In fact, I remember in spring training one year, Chuck said he had got the pitchers together, and he was thinking at one time about, with his starting rotation, every pitcher, he wanted 3 starters a game, to go 3 innings apiece. And we all kind of looked at each other, and I don't think it was me. It might have been one of the other guys, and say, well, wait a minute. You've got to pitch 5 innings to get a win. You know?
I know Blyleven liked that idea. I know Blyleven liked that idea.
Yeah, that would have went over like a, yeah. But he was ahead of his time, I think. I really do. But it never did develop. I mean, a couple of years ago in Tampa, they did that, you know, relievers starting the game and all that stuff. But, I mean, I'm glad he didn't do it. But it might have worked. But he answered the question by saying, well, I can rotate you guys. Whoever started today, the next time it was their turn, they're going to be the second or the third pitcher. So you could set up a rotation where if you're the middle guy, your chances of getting the win are better than the first or third guy, because usually most games are decided from the 6th inning on. So, you know, Chuck had his way, and he was not a starting pitcher's manager, and there's your Blyleven quote that you just came up with. Bert and Chuck just did not. If you were ahead by a run or behind by a run in 5 innings, you were gone.
Right.
And you needed to know that and understand that, because that's the way it was going to be. And that's how Chuck managed. So he loved to manipulate the bullpen, and he did very well. But as a starting pitcher, I mean, I had a couple conversations. He took me out of a game one time, and I went crazy. Didn't say anything. The next day, he called me in the dugout during batting practice. We were in New York. I had like a 3-run lead in the 7th inning or something like that, and he came and took me out of a game. And he says, Rook, he said, I want to tell you why I took you out of the game last night. And I said, well, hold on, please, just a second. I said, you're the manager. I said, you don't owe me any explanation. I said, you give me the ball, I pitch. You take it away, I don't pitch. Plus, there's nothing you're going to tell me that's going to convince me that I should have been taken out of that game last night. And he just kind of stared at me, and he says, I wish I had 9 more just like you. And I think he just said that to appease me, because we had a hell of a pitching staff. If you think about the guys that were there, we had I'm telling. I honestly think this. I believe this. When we in a span there of 3, 4, 5, 6 years maybe, we had the best 10-man pitching staff in Major League Baseball. You look at other staffs; they might have 3 good starters and maybe 1 or 2 guys in the bullpen. So that's 5 more guys that they're there, but they really couldn't compete with our guys. We had 10 guys. When you called on, you're called on, you did the job. Now you're going to have your bad days on occasion. Sure. That's just life. But I would always match up. We were the lumber company. It was lumber this and lumber that, and then the pitchers would get on their ass and say, "Yeah, this lumber company showed up tonight." And everybody got a laugh out of it because you could say things then that you can't say now. And so we had such a unique group of players that I wouldn't trade those years with the Pirates for anything anywhere.
Jim, we're gonna wrap this up, but I'm getting a little emotional here because I'm thinking about a bunch of things. But if you remember the 40th anniversary. In 2019, I was there, and I was with you guys, and you guys went down to the field, and the family and friends stayed in the suite, and they showed highlights of the '79 team. So I started getting emotional, like I am now. And Linda said, my wife Linda, she said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Number one, I absolutely loved that team. Number 2, I loved that era. Number 3, I'm doing what I'm doing, coaching and scouting and all that stuff. And number 4, I'm here." So, you talk about lucky and blessed. I'm grateful for those days every day of my life. And I'm grateful for you because, you were always nice to me. And I remember when I was in 11th grade. And you might not remember this, but you were announcing, and I told you I made varsity. I'm starting pitching, and you gave me a jacket. And I used to wear your jacket on warm-ups. So just picture a 16-year-old kid wearing a Jim Rooker jacket, with your name on it, the number and all that. And I wore number 19 at that time, and until they took it off me. But you and that team were very special to me, and you still are special to me. And how lucky am I to call you friend? And my dad loved you, my daughter, my wife, and to me, you're the best, and I appreciate you to the moon.
Well, Claudio, I appreciate that, but if truth comes down to it, I didn't really like you. The only reason I did that was because of your Uncle Jack. I loved him.
And what a card he was.
You know what? Yeah, I know. You know what? I try to do, only because, again, I think back what my aunts and uncles did for me. They supported me through Little League and all of this different types of baseball that I'd get involved with. You'd have raffle ticket sales and all that stuff. And that's something I don't forget. So when you have kids, even your children or others, they ask you, would you do this or can you do that? How easy is it to just, sure, I'll be glad to help. And if it in any way helps, then you feel like it's a pat on the back from somebody else. You're not patting yourself on the back. It's so easy to be nice. You got to go out of your way to be a jerk, the way I look at it. Right. And I've done that a few times too. But even when I wrote the books for kids, wrote the children's books, It was because of my grandchildren. I wanted to do something for them. And then I said, geez, why not do this for just kids in general? I mean, how can baseball and reading and kids, how does that not go together? So that was easy for me to do. And you have, for the ones I wrote, Paul the Baseball, Matt the Bat, Kit the Mitt, you had to have the mind of a 5-year-old, and I certainly qualified for that.
Well, Jim, we appreciate you taking time to be on the show. I miss you here in Pittsburgh. I miss you seeing at golf events. We used to have a lot of fun with that. And, again, thank you for everything. I appreciate you more than you know.
I appreciate it. Always, anytime. It's always enjoyable to talk about baseball in Pittsburgh.
All right, brother. Thank you, and tell Becky hello, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, Linda and I, do you do the same?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Ciao, Chrissy. Your Italian got so much better. Brava.
Grazie. It's because I learned the best way possible.
How so?
Well, I learned that with apps, grammar books, and even YouTube videos, I could only get so far. I had to immerse myself. I noticed I did best when I was in Italy visiting family. That's where my level really soared.
And wow, did it work?
Thanks. I became much more confident, fast. That's why I created Footsteps Through Time. It's an Italian language experience. You don't just take Italian classes, you immerse yourself in a real Italian village. With lots of fun activities and excursions, it's life-changing.
I see. So, no more boring grammar, impersonal apps, just real conversations, real culture, and delicious food, of course.
Exactly. I'm so excited about this. Learn Italian by actually becoming part of the local community for a week and living it. So if you've been dreaming of Italy and the language, check out Footsteps Through Time in Italy.com. Book now and join the experience.
Andiamo!
Thanks to Greater Pittsburgh Travel. For any of your travel needs, let Tom and the team at Greater Pittsburgh Travel know, and they'll take care of you. For more information, call 412-331-2244 or visit their website at www.greaterpittsburghtravel.com. And we want to thank the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. If you're interested in learning more, you can find their contact information on Facebook at Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. Again, thanks Domenica and the team at the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh for your support.
Hello, everyone. My name is Claudio Reilsono, and I'm the author of the book, Lead from the Heart Up, Not the Neck Up, How to Create a Positive Winning Culture on the Field and in the Office. My years as a head baseball coach and a general manager of a pro baseball scouting company, I know that my leadership experiences that I've included in this book will help you become a better leader. You can get the book at ClaudioReilsono.com. Speaking of ClaudioReilsono.com, you can listen to my show, The Claudio Reilsono Show, where I've interviewed such legends as Mario Andretti, Dick Vermeil, Rocky Bleier, and many, many others. And I also have an entrepreneurial program there talking about my entrepreneurial experiences. So hopefully that will help you, and hopefully you will enjoy that. And also, Sports Corner, hosted by Ralph Williams, co-host with myself, Jim Frazier, and Luther Dupree Jr. We appear on 92.5 FM, 1250 AM, The Answer, Salem Radio, every Saturday here in Pittsburgh, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy all the shows, and I hope you enjoy my book.
We'd also like to thank Chris Gonzalez from the Knights of Columbus. If you have any questions about joining the Knights of Columbus, reach out to Chris Gonzalez at 412-605-9074. Hi, I'm Steve Mancini.
And I am Claudio Reilsono, and we are the hosts of Talking Business and Life.
Join us in celebrating the Italian community on June 28th as the Pittsburgh Pirates take on the Cincinnati Reds. This ticket package includes an exclusive co-branded Pirates Italian-themed jersey and loaded value to use on concessions and merchandise during the game.
And remember, a portion of each ticket purchased through this offer will benefit a local Italian charity.
So hope to see you there June 28th as the Pittsburgh Pirates take on the Cincinnati Reds.
Okay, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. Again, when you care about someone as much as I care about Jim, you get emotional. So I got a little emotional, but that's who I am. That's my mom used to say, never speak from the neck up, speak from the heart up, and I certainly did. And Jim gave some great stories. And the thing, Steve, when he brought these names, he mentioned some of these names. Those are the guys I grew up watching, and there was that team. What a personality, that you don't see today, in my opinion. And I told Jim this in front of his restaurant. He had a restaurant, very popular restaurant called Rook's in Ambridge. And you know me, I remember things. Right in front of the door, I said, Jim, when I was 8 years old, I went to that first Pirate game, August 19th, 1973, and I knew what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I don't know if I was 8 years old now seeing these guys, if that'd be the same. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But I still love doing what I'm doing. But that era for me was just very special.
I want to say something real quick because you know what? Because I grew up on a lot of the same things.
Sure.
I'm a few years younger than you, but not much. But I do remember some of these guys. And, we've talked about everything from boxing to, football to and you know what? It's a shame because I get it. It's just sports. Okay, I get it. But at the same time, when you're younger, sitting in front of the TV set with your family, with your dad or whatever, it's not just sport. It's the moment, and the moment includes the sports. And that sports becomes a part of your moment.
Well said.
Becomes a part of your memories, and that's why it matters. The problem now is these guys are so. I'm not going to say all of them. I will not cast a blanket on all of them. But let's just say that there are too many. And there's not enough good guys. They're just there, get paid, get out. That's what they want. And the problem with that is they don't understand the positive impact that they could be having on someone's life. But they choose to I just want to get mine and get out. Okay. And you know what? There's a detachment. And what is sports? That's why I asked. It's all about money. There's no characters. You think about, like, let's go back to boxing. Let's think of some of the characters that you would see by rings, even the guys on ringside.
That's right.
You miss some of them announcers, and it's like, it just doesn't exist anymore. No. And then when it does, it's too fake. Because it's like, I'm trying to be like that guy. How about you be like you? And if you're a funny character, then it'll come out, and then you'll be that guy. But the ones that even try, most of them it's just a routine. Most of them don't even try, and too many of them I just want to get paid. It's such a shame. Again, I get it, it's sports, but at the same time, it's not just sports, because it's something big. It's about competition, about the best in humanity, the best versus the best, and it's like, and now it really is just about gambling, pay-per-view, fantasy sports. And
it's
just
from the neck up.
Yeah, exactly. It's from the pocketbook up, and and there it is. But you're right. These guys, that's why I like these kinds of interviews. That's why I like people like him. I don't even know the guy, and I can tell you right now, I was listening to him talk, I'd be like, he's got to be a great guy.
Oh, he is.
He's got to be.
Again, how blessed and lucky was I back then, going to the locker rooms and experiencing what I experienced. It was fun, for sure.
It's always
I'm
good
not going to get through that Hall of Fame speech. You know that.
I know. Okay. It's always good to know somebody that can let you in to get all those autographs. Yeah, so there you go.
Okay. Well, again, I hope you all enjoyed that as much as we did. It meant a lot to me to do that. And we're going to have another interview soon that I'll probably get choked up again. Jimmy Birchfield. He is the founder and president and owner of Classic Entertainment and Sports out of Rhode Island. He has promoted many championship fights, and one of the, in my opinion, pound for pound, to borrow a boxing analogy, the best promoter out there. And I love Jimmy, and he's going to be on soon. So, Steve, appreciate you always giving me a chance to be a partner here with you. And again, as always, thank you, Mom and Pop.
Thank you for listening to Talking Business and Life with Claudio Reilsono and Steve Mancini. Tune in next week for more impactful business and life experiences with Claudio and Steve.